They dumped the black owner on his head. What he did next shocked everyone. It was a Wednesday morning when the restaurant floor smelled like lemon cleaner and freshly ground coffee, the kind of morning that whispered, new beginnings, even if most people were too busy to notice. Tariq noticed. He was the owner of the Elm Table, a warm, wood-and-steel restaurant on a busy street where people rushed past with iced lattes and forgotten dreams. At 42, Tariq wore his quiet power lightly, pressed black tee, jeans, and scuffed brown boots. His skin was deep brown, his beard neatly trimmed, and his eyes carried the tired warmth of a man who had built something from scratch and still came in every morning to mop the front entrance himself. He was leaning down to pick up a receipt near the counter when it happened. The waiter, a young white man named Owen, came rushing out from the kitchen, balancing 2 crates of glassware, earbuds in, head down, moving too fast. In a second that stretched painfully long, Owen's foot caught on Tariq's heel. Time folded. The crates flew. Glass shattered like sharp rain. And Tariq, owner, mentor, father, the man who signed the paychecks, hit the floor, head first, the sound dull and final against the polished concrete. There was a collective gasp from the early customers near the window. And in that moment, the restaurant Tariq built felt like it stopped breathing. For a moment, there was only the ringing in Tariq's ears, like the distant hum of power lines in the summer. He blinked up at the ceiling lights, harsh and cold, as Owen hovered above him, hands trembling, mouth moving but no words coming out. "Sir, I'm so sorry." The cafe had gone silent except for the hiss of the espresso machine. A mother clutching her toddler near the pastry case turned away, as avoiding the scene. An older man near the window coughed, looking down at his coffee, pretending nothing had happened. It wasn't just the fall. It was the way people looked away. The way the mother gripped her purse tighter, her eyes flickering from Tariq's dark skin to the way Owen's pale hands hovered above him, pleading, frantic. It was the way the young couple near the door exchanged a glance, the man muttering under his breath, what did he do to get in the way? It was the way Owen, pale and shaking, looked around for someone to help him, someone to fix this mess he had caused, and found that everyone else was watching, but no one was stepping in. Tariq could taste the metallic tang of blood at the corner of his mouth. He sat up slowly, the world tipping sideways, vision clouding as he pressed a hand to the back of his head. He caught Owen's eyes for a moment, saw the fear, the panic, the desperate hope for forgiveness already flickering there. Tariq swallowed, his voice low, steady. "It's okay. Help me up." But in that moment, he saw it, the quiet expectation that the man on the floor would make it easier for everyone else. That he would forgive quickly. That he would not make it awkward. That he would clean up the mess again. Owen helped Tariq to his feet, hands clammy, eyes darting around to see if anyone was recording. The floor was littered with shards of glass, coffee leaking into the cracks, a dark stain spreading slowly across the polished concrete like a bruise that would never wash out. Let me clean this up, sir," Owen stammered, reaching for the broom in the corner. Tariq steadied himself against the counter, the throb in his head pulsing with every beat of his heart, watching the glass catch the light. "No." The word was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. Owen froze, broom in hand. Tariq's voice stayed calm, controlled, though the air around him felt thick, pressing against his ribs. "You will not sweep this up. Not yet." Owen blinked, confusion mixing with that frantic fear in his eyes. "Sir, I don't understand." Tariq looked around the cafe, at the faces trying to look busy, pretending not to eavesdrop. Then his eyes settled on Owen. "You're going to stand here, with me, and you're going to look at it." Owen's mouth opened, then closed. "The mess?" he asked, voice trembling. "No," Tariq replied, his voice steady, low, the kind that made people lean in to listen. "You're going to look at what this moment is. You dumped the black owner of this place on his head, and now everyone expects me to pretend it didn't happen. To sweep it up so you can keep feeling comfortable." Owen's eyes darted to the tables. A few customers looked up, uncomfortable, shifting in their chairs. Tariq continued, "We're going to let it sit here. Let everyone see it. Let everyone remember that this happened. That you did this." Owen's face paled, a tear forming in the corner of his eye. "But sir..." Tariq cut him off, softly, but firmly. "You will not call me sir, right now. Just stand. And look." They stood there, in the middle of the cafe, surrounded by the wreckage and the eyes that could no longer look away. And for the first time, the quiet shame in the room wasn't Tariq's to carry alone. The cafe stayed unnaturally quiet, the hiss of the espresso machine the only sound filling the space as Tariq and Owen stood by the spilled coffee and shattered glass. A little girl at the window asked her mother, in that innocent, too loud voice children have, "Mommy, why is that man crying?" The mother hushed her, pulling her closer, her eyes flicking toward Tariq before dropping to the table. Owen wiped at his face with the back of his hand, shame burning on his skin. Tariq felt the throb in his head, the dull ache that reminded him of every time he'd swallowed moments like this to keep the peace, to keep the business alive, to keep his dignity intact while others' comfort was prioritized. He looked at Owen, really looked at him. A kid, barely in his 20s, trying to pay rent while playing in a garage band on weekends, wearing a thrift store denim jacket with frayed elbows and a patch that said, "Be kind." Tariq almost laughed at the irony. "You're scared," Tariq said, his voice even, calm. Owen opened his mouth, then closed it, nodding. "You're not scared because you hurt me," Tariq continued. "You're scared because you're worried about what people will think of you. About whether you'll get fired, whether this will follow you." Owen's shoulders shook, tears streaming now. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "I know," Tariq said, quietly, letting the silence wrap around the words. "You didn't mean to. But you did." A man near the counter sighed loudly, trying to catch Tariq's attention, annoyed at the discomfort in the air. Tariq ignored him. "You know what's worse than falling on this floor?" Tariq asked, his eyes steady on Owen. Owen looked up, eyes red, confused. "It's standing back up and knowing everyone expects you to smile, to sweep it away, to make them comfortable so they can keep pretending nothing happened." Tariq's hand went to the back of his head, feeling the tender lump forming. "And today," Tariq continued, "I'm not doing that." Owen's lip quivered. "Then what? What do you want me to do?" Tariq looked around at the tables, at the uncomfortable faces, at the people who had come for their morning coffee and found themselves witnessing a moment they didn't want to see. He took a breath. "You're going to do something no one expects." The cafe felt like it was holding its breath. Owen stood there, tears drying on his cheeks, the broom still in his trembling hand. Tariq's eyes swept across the cafe, meeting each gaze, letting the discomfort linger. "Take off your apron," Tariq said quietly. Owen blinked. "What?" "Take it off." Slowly, Owen untied the apron strings with shaking fingers, folding the stained black apron over one arm, looking lost, exposed without it. Tariq nodded toward the tables. "You're going to walk to each person in this cafe and apologize. Out loud. Not to me. To them. For what you did." Owen's eyes widened, a small gasp escaping. "Please, please don't make me." Tariq's voice was low, controlled, but each word was clear enough to cut the air. "You dropped the owner of this place on his head." And everyone watched, and everyone was ready to move on, because it's easier that way. But if you really mean you're sorry, you can start by acknowledging it publicly, not just in whispers. Owen looked around, as begging for someone to save him. No one moved. "Please," Owen whispered again, voice cracking. Tariq tilted his head, his own pain throbbing with every breath, but his gaze never wavered. "You said you're sorry," Tariq said. "Show them you mean it." The cafe was so quiet they could hear the tick of the old clock above the door. A young man at the window with a laptop looked up, eyes wide, holding his coffee frozen midair. The mother holding her toddler pressed her lips into a line, eyes glassy. And Owen, standing barefoot in his vulnerability, took the first step. Owen's shoes felt heavy on the concrete floor as he took that first step toward the window table, where the young man with the laptop sat, earbuds pulled out, staring. Owen's voice shook as he spoke, his eyes wet, throat tight. "I'm sorry," he said, the words catching in his mouth. "I dropped the owner, Tariq, on his head. I wasn't paying attention, and I heard him. I didn't see him." The young man blinked, setting his coffee down, the tension on his face shifting to something softer, something that looked like witnessing. Owen moved to the mother holding her toddler, who clutched her hand tighter as he approached. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Owen said, his voice low but clear enough for the cafe to hear. "I hurt someone because I was careless, and I know it made you uncomfortable. It should." The mother's eyes softened, but she said nothing, just nodded once, tears brimming in her eyes. Owen's chest heaved, breath catching as he turned toward the couple near the door, the man who had muttered under his breath when Tariq fell. Owen swallowed hard. I'm sorry I made it easy for you to think he was in the way. The man looked down at his shoes, cheeks flushed. Each step Owen took felt like peeling skin from bone, exposing every ounce of his shame to the light. And yet, as he spoke, the cafe felt different. The silence shifted, no longer the silence of discomfort, but the silence of people witnessing something real. Owen turned to Tariq, still standing by the counter, steady despite the pain in his head. I'm sorry, Owen whispered, voice breaking, for everything. Tariq let the silence stretch until the room could feel its weight. Then, quietly, he said, "Thank you for saying it out loud." And in that moment, the cafe was no longer just a place to grab coffee. It became a place where truth cracked the veneer of comfort, letting in a sliver of light. When Owen finished his walk, the cafe was quiet in a way that felt different, like everyone was seeing the room and each other for the first time. Tariq looked around, letting the silence anchor itself into the wood and concrete, into the breaths people were holding, into the eyes that no longer looked away. "Thank you, Owen," Tariq said, voice steady, even as the pain pulsed behind his skull. Owen nodded, tears streaking his cheeks, his chest rising and falling with each ragged breath. Tariq turned, looking at the customers, each face reflecting something: guilt, discomfort, respect, quiet awakening. "You all saw what happened," Tariq said softly, letting each word land like a pebble dropped in still water. "You saw me fall, saw him drop me. You saw the owner of this place lying on the floor, and you looked away." The young man with the laptop shifted in his seat. The mother pulled her child closer. The couple near the door held hands tightly. "And I get it," Tariq continued, "because looking away is easier. Easier than asking why it hit different when the black man was on the ground. Easier than asking yourself why you didn't move, didn't speak, didn't check if I was okay." He paused, letting them feel it. "But I'm telling you now, I'm not angry with you. I'm asking you to see. Because what happened here is bigger than spilled coffee and shattered glass." The cafe stayed silent, but it wasn't empty. It was full now. Full of breaths held, hearts quickened, eyes meeting eyes with nowhere to hide. Tariq leaned against the counter, the afternoon light pouring in behind him, outlining him in gold. "This place, my place, isn't just about selling coffee," he said. "It's about creating a space where people learn to see each other, really see, even when it's uncomfortable." His eyes went back to Owen, whose shoulders were shaking with quiet sobs. "And Owen," Tariq said, "you've done something many people never do. You've stood in your mistake and faced it." Owen looked up, eyes red, lips trembling. "I'm proud of you for that." And in that moment, the cafe felt like a living, breathing place of truth, where accountability was not punishment, but a chance to grow. The customers watched, their coffee cooling in cups they no longer sipped, as Tariq straightened, pressing a hand to the lump on the back of his head. The weight of the moment pressed on the cafe's brick walls, the air thick with the scent of spilled coffee and the rawness of a truth that had nowhere left to hide. Tariq looked at Owen, who was still trembling, clutching the folded apron in his hands like a flag of surrender. "Do you think you should lose your job for this?" Tariq asked, his voice calm, clear. Owen's head snapped up, eyes wide. I don't know," he whispered. "Maybe I should." The cafe seemed to lean in, customers exchanging glances, waiting for what they were sure would come: the firing, the collapse, the easy into an uncomfortable scene. But Tariq shook his head. "No," he said, "you're not going to lose your job." A gasp rippled through the cafe, the young man with the laptop's mouth falling open, the mother blinking rapidly. Owen's lips parted, confused, a sob caught in his throat. "What? But I hurt you. I embarrassed this place." Tariq raised a hand, silencing him. "You did. You made a mistake, a big one. And you faced it, publicly, without running away. You did what many grown men twice your age won't do." Owen's shoulders slumped, tears streaking his face, relief and confusion mixing like rain and dust. "But you're not off the hook," Tariq continued, and the firmness in his voice returned, wrapping around the room like a steady drumbeat. You're going to keep working here, but from now on, you're going to take responsibility for seeing what needs to be seen. Owen blinked. What do you mean? You're going to lead the anti-bias training for every new hire, Tariq said. And you're going to start by sharing what you learned today about carelessness, about accountability, about what it means to see someone before it's too late. The cafe was silent again, but this silence was alive, pulsing, almost holy. And every week, Tariq added, you're going to tell me one thing you've learned about seeing people, about checking your blind spots, about using your privilege to protect rather than to ignore. Owen opened his mouth, but no words came. Instead, he nodded, tears dripping onto the concrete. And in that moment, Tariq turned something that could have been punishment into a pathway for growth, a pathway that no one, not even Owen, expected. For a long moment after Tariq's words settled, no one moved. Then, quietly, the young man with the laptop closed it, leaning forward, eyes glassy. The mother kissed the top of her child's head, blinking away tears, holding her a little closer. The couple near the door exchanged a look, the man clearing his throat, guilt and reflection flickering across his face. And Owen, still clutching his apron, sank to his knees among the shards of glass and spilled coffee, tears falling freely, his body shaking as he exhaled everything he had been holding inside. Tariq watched him, the throbbing in his head syncing with the beat of his heart, his own breath catching as he realized what they were witnessing together. A moment where accountability did not destroy, but rebuilt. A moment where truth was not a weapon, but a mirror. A moment where racism's small daily fractures, those assumptions, those dismissals, those moments of looking away, were laid bare for everyone to see, and no one could pretend it hadn't happened. A moment where he, the black owner on the floor, reclaimed dignity on his terms. A hush fell over the cafe as Tariq stepped forward, extending his hand to Owen. "Get up," he said softly. Owen looked up, tears and snot on his face. The humiliation washed now into something closer to understanding. He took Tariq's hand, and Tariq pulled him up, steadying him. "This is your first step," Tariq said, "not your last." Owen nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand, eyes locking with Tariq's, a promise in that gaze that could not be undone. Around them, the cafe exhaled, the tension shifting into a quiet, hopeful electricity that buzzed between the reclaimed tables and the people who had witnessed something real, something that would follow them out the door, into their cars, into their conversations later that night. A little girl near the window whispered to her mother, "Is the man okay now?" Her mother bent down, pressing her forehead to her daughter's, and answered softly, "He will be." And Tariq, standing there, felt something open in his chest, a breath he hadn't realized he was holding for years. When the cafe doors finally opened again for the late morning rush, the air felt different. Quieter, yes, but alive, aware. The regulars walked in, pausing as they saw the broom resting against the counter, the faint coffee stain still darkening the concrete like a reminder. The staff, who had watched from the kitchen door, stepped out one by one. Maya, the head barista, her dark curls pulled into a tight bun, met Tariq's gaze. "You okay, boss?" she asked quietly. Tariq nodded, though the throb in his head reminded him he wasn't fully. But there was a calm in him, a steadiness that replaced the anger that so often followed moments like these. "I will be," he said. Maya's eyes flickered to Owen, who stood near the sink, rinsing the last tears from his face, his hands trembling as he wiped them on a towel. "You're really keeping him on?" she asked. Tariq turned to her, his eyes clear. "Yes, but not as he was, as who he's choosing to become." The staff gathered near the espresso machine, the hum of milk steaming the only sound as they listened. "This place," Tariq said, "will not be a place where we pretend mistakes don't happen. It will be a place where we learn, where we hold each other accountable, where we see each other, even when it's uncomfortable." He looked at each of them, at Maya's quiet strength, at David's cautious curiosity, at the teenage dishwasher clutching a towel with wide eyes, at Owen, who had nowhere to hide and was no longer trying to. "Owen will be leading our bias reflection check-ins every week," Tariq continued, "and we'll all participate. We will talk about what we see in ourselves, what we ignore, what we need to change. A beat of silence. David cleared his throat. What if customers get uncomfortable, boss? Tariq's lips twitched into the faintest smile. Then maybe we're doing something right. Maya nodded, her eyes softening. Yeah, okay. And in that moment, the elm table became more than a cafe again. It became a space where seeing each other was a practice, not a slogan. A space where learning was not performative, but lived. A space where racism's small fractures would not be swept under the rug, but named, faced, and repaired together. The next morning, the coffee grinders hummed as usual, but the cafe felt different. People walked in, eyes scanning the floor where the stain still marked yesterday's lesson. Some customers paused, running a finger along the edge of their cup, the silence between sips thoughtful. An older black man who had been coming in for years sat by the window, watching Tariq as he wiped down tables, moving carefully, the tenderness in his head reminding him of the cost of every quiet victory. You did something yesterday, the man said softly when Tariq approached with the coffee pot to offer a refill. Tariq paused, meeting the man's eyes. Did I? Tariq asked, exhaustion and curiosity mixing in his voice. The man nodded, his gaze warm but heavy with history. You made them see, made them feel what we carry. And you didn't do it with yelling. You did it with truth. Tariq swallowed, the lump in his throat thicker than the bruise on his head. Thank you for seeing that. Across the cafe, Owen was wiping tables, offering shy smiles, the awkwardness of his new role obvious but honest. When customers looked him in the eye, he didn't look away. Instead, he nodded, a quiet agreement to remain accountable, to remain seen. A young woman in business clothes approached the counter, pausing before ordering her latte. I was here yesterday, she said, her voice tight, fingers picking at the strap of her bag. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Tariq looked at her, waiting. She took a breath. I'm sorry for that. Tariq nodded. Thank you for saying it. She smiled, tears in her eyes, before placing her order. Later that day, a college student posted on social media about what she had witnessed, writing, Today I learned what accountability can look like when it's rooted in care, not shame. I saw a black man stand in his dignity and a young white man learn in public. I left different. We all did. The post went viral locally, people sharing their own stories of moments where they stayed silent when they should have spoken, moments they wanted to do differently. The Elm Table's email inbox filled with messages. I want to support a place like yours. Thank you for showing us how to be better. Can we donate to your staff's anti-bias training? Tariq read them at night, the throbbing in his head steady but somehow grounding, a reminder that discomfort was the soil where change grew. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a quiet, determined hope. The following week, the stain on the floor remained, a small, imperfect ring in the polished concrete, a quiet monument to a moment no one could ignore. Tariq stood by the front window early that morning, the sunrise pooling gold across the cafe, illuminating the tables where people now gathered not just for coffee, but for quiet reflection, small conversations, and sometimes uncomfortable truths. Owen arrived early, setting down his bag, breathing deeply before the doors opened. His eyes met Tariq's, and there was something different there now, something steadier, something that came from standing in discomfort and choosing to learn. You ready? Tariq asked, nodding toward the broom Owen picked up. Owen nodded, gripping the handle. Yeah, and thank you for letting me stay, for making me face it. Tariq studied him, then placed a hand on his shoulder, firm and warm. Don't thank me yet, he said. Thank me when you've taught someone else what you learned. Owen nodded, blinking back tears he didn't bother to hide. As customers trickled in, the mother who once held her child tight returned, her daughter in tow, the little girl looking at the floor, then up at Tariq. Is the floor still hurt? She asked. Tariq chuckled softly, crouching down so his eyes met hers. A little, he said honestly. But it's healing. She nodded, satisfied with the answer, before running to the window to watch the street. Throughout the morning, customers came and went, but the cafe felt alive in a way that was not about perfection, but about presence. And as Tariq moved through the space, still feeling the dull reminder of that fall, he realized. This was his place. Built by him, sustained by him. A black-owned space where dignity wasn't negotiable, where silence wasn't the price of peace, where mistakes didn't mean banishment but the responsibility to grow. And for the first time, he let himself feel proud of that. Before closing, he placed a small sign near the counter, next to the stain that remained. This cafe is a place for seeing, for learning, for accountability. We will not clean up truth to make you comfortable. Some customers paused, reading it. Some nodded. A few looked away, shifting in discomfort before quietly returning to their conversations. And that was okay. Because change didn't need everyone's comfort, it needed everyone's willingness to see. Tariq looked around at the elm table, the hum of conversation, the hiss of steam, the gentle clatter of cups, and the soft voices speaking truth in small, brave ways. And he smiled, knowing that this place, his place, was exactly what it needed to be. A table, open to all, where justice, discomfort, dignity, and hope could sit together, and where no one would ever have to stand alone again. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.